What would you put up with for all the money and fame in the world? A controlling partner, sleepless nights, being told where to sit, when to smile, what to eat? Now, what if you had to give up your voice, your memories, your soul? I met someone who did. They called her the doll, but she wasn't made. She was emptied, assigned to Diddy, preserved like a possession. And when she disappeared, no one even remembered her name, except me. Comment below, how far would you go? Let's see if anyone else would trade everything for a taste of joy. I wasn't the kind of assistant who got invited to parties. I didn't hand Diddy his drinks or walk girls to the VIP section. I handled logistics, travel itineraries, security briefings, the things no one wants to notice, but everything falls apart without. That's probably why I lasted as long as I did. I didn't come from money, didn't go to an Ivy League school. My degree was from a decent state college, and I spent most of my 20s hopping between entry-level gigs, tour manager for a mid-level rapper, then operations for a luxury boutique hotel in Atlanta. Steady work, long hours, nothing glamorous, but I learned how to solve problems without making noise. That's how I ended up at the Combs estate. Quiet, efficient, invisible when I needed to be. I wasn't flashy or plugged into the social circle. I was a worker. And for people like me, there's only one real rule in this business. Stay in your lane. Don't ask questions, and never outshine the boss. Which is probably why I noticed her. She didn't arrive with a grand introduction. One day she just appeared, sitting beside him during breakfast meetings, stepping silently into SUVs before anyone called for the car. Never late, never early, just there. She didn't smile, didn't speak, never looked anyone directly in the eye. The staff whispered different names, model, cousin, new thing, but no one ever said it with certainty. And no one, not once, used her actual name. The housekeeper started calling her the doll. I thought it was a joke at first. Industry sarcasm. But over time, the name started to feel earned. Not because she was pretty, though she was, but because she looked artificial. Like someone had sculpted her to perfection, then drained out whatever made her human. At first, I assumed drugs. I'd seen it before. A certain kind of woman would enter his world, bright-eyed, breathing fast, and 6 months later, they'd walk through the house like they were sleepwalking. This felt familiar. But Jane, as I eventually decided to call her, wasn't high. She was something else entirely. Calm, still, not numb, empty. I first got assigned to her in March. My boss, the head assistant, passed me a sealed folder and didn't look up from his screen. Handle her logistics quietly. Don't speak to her unless she speaks first. Don't ask questions. Inside the folder, dietary restrictions, hotel preferences, travel aliases, and a list of private room requirements. Everything was marked in red. Everything was urgent. One line at the bottom said, "Mirror must face east wall, always." From that day on, Jane became my ghost assignment. She didn't acknowledge me. She didn't need anything. But every time Diddy flew, she flew. When he went out of town, she was 2 suites over. Her wardrobe rotated seasonally, always custom pieces, hand-selected by someone far above my pay grade. Still, no one talked about her, not even the other assistants. Once, I tried to be polite. We were walking through the hallway of a private estate in Aspen. I had just checked that her bags had arrived ahead of schedule. I passed her in the corridor and quietly said, "Just wanted to let you know, your room's ready." I made sure everything on the list was handled. Let me know if anything's missing. She stopped walking, turned her head slowly toward me. Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. They hovered just to the side of my face. Then she said, "Thank you," and walked away. It was the first and last time she ever acknowledged me. I told myself not to take it personally. I was used to silence. I'd worked with artists who screamed at you in one city and forgot you existed the next. But something about her silence unnerved me. It wasn't cold, it was deliberate. Like she had forgotten how to talk to people and was faking it just enough to pass inspection. Later that week, I walked into one of the smaller sitting rooms looking for a backup charger. The lights were dimmed, the curtains were drawn. That's when I saw them. Jane was seated in front of a tall standing mirror, her back perfectly straight, hands folded in her lap. She wasn't looking at herself. She was looking through the mirror, like it was a window, and Diddy was behind her, standing in the shadows, not touching her, not speaking, just watching her reflection. Neither of them moved, neither acknowledged me. I froze, unsure whether I'd just walked in on a moment or something else entirely. Then, without breaking eye contact with the mirror, Diddy spoke. Close the door. I did. I didn't sleep well that night. After that night in the mirror room, something changed. Not with Jane. She remained just as hollow, just as silent, but with how I started to see her. Before, I assumed she was just another girl passing through, wrapped up in the machinery of his world like so many others. But now it felt like she wasn't just in the machinery. She was part of it, necessary, designed, installed. And Diddy? He watched her the way someone watches a priceless object, possessive, but also cautious, like she might break, or worse, wake up. 2 mornings later, I was officially tasked with managing her logistics full-time. The head assistant didn't even pretend to make it optional. She's internal now. That means discretion, room assignments, dietary needs, transport, wardrobe. Use the updated alias. He paused, handed me a thick white envelope. Keep her out of the public. Don't ask her questions. And don't let her out of your sight when she's on property. Inside the envelope was a burner phone, 5 hotel preference lists, and an inventory sheet titled Doll, Maintenance Protocol. I stared at that heading for a while. Thought it might be a typo. But then again, nothing was ever typed by accident here. From that point on, Jane traveled like a piece of equipment. First to arrive, last to leave. She didn't use the cars we arranged. She rode with him. She didn't go out to eat, but the chef still had to prepare her meals. Sometimes untouched plates were thrown away without a single bite missing, like offerings left out for something unseen. I learned her patterns. She always sat in the same seat on private flights. Second row, left side, window. She requested the same hotel room layouts, low floor, north facing, mirror on the east wall. She didn't speak unless spoken to. And when she did, it was like her voice had to remember itself. Once, I tested the boundaries. We were walking through a luxury penthouse in Miami. Diddy was downstairs doing press. I took the opportunity to check in. Hey, just letting you know, I adjusted the drapes to keep the light off the mirror. Should help with jet lag. She turned slightly, lips parted like she might say something, then nodded once. Quiet, measured. Thank you. Same tone, same inflection, like I'd hit play on a recording. Later that day, I saw something that stuck with me. We were all preparing to leave for a club appearance. Jane hadn't been scheduled to go. She was supposed to stay behind. But when I walked past the prep room, I saw Diddy standing in front of her as she sat in a chair. She was dressed already. Heels, fitted dress, hair done, but she wasn't moving, just staring forward into the large mirror mounted on the opposite wall. And Diddy? He was talking to her in a low voice, not angry, not even loud enough for me to hear. He reached out and gently placed both hands on her shoulders, like a puppeteer adjusting his strings. She blinked slowly. He whispered something else and stepped aside. Jane stood up. But as she walked past him, he didn't follow. He just watched her reflection until she left the room. I pretended I hadn't seen anything and kept walking. But for the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just witnessed something intimate and wrong. like watching someone pray to a statue they'd carved themselves. That night, we stayed at a high-rise suite overlooking downtown Miami. I was up late finalizing the next morning's flight manifest when I noticed a new photo had been uploaded to our shared media folder for approval. It was from earlier that week, taken by a house photographer during a quiet brunch on the private patio. Jane was in the shot, seated 2 chairs away from Diddy, hands folded. Same angle, same pose. But something about the image made my stomach tighten. Behind her, in the reflection of the patio window, there was no Diddy, just her, alone, staring into the glass. Her expression in the reflection wasn't hollow. It was aware, watching, waiting. I closed the folder and shut the laptop. Something about Jane didn't feel like a woman under control. It felt like a thing being preserved. And preserved things don't stay quiet forever. By month 4, Jane's presence wasn't unusual. It was routine. She was on every flight manifest. A room was always held for her, even if she never slept there. Every security sweep, car detail, and catering run included her in the prep, but she rarely used any of it. You'd forget she was there until you realized she'd been in every room you entered. Quiet, motionless, eyes slightly too still. She never carried a phone, never posted, never wandered. And no matter how many cities we landed in, she always had the same expression, like she was being wound up before every appearance. And when the battery ran low, she just stopped. I started noticing other things too. She always sat facing mirrors, not just casually, positioned, like someone had arranged her as part of the decor. And every mirror she sat in front of, it was large, framed, clean, always on the east wall, always reflecting her. And sometimes, though I couldn't prove it, I'd swear her reflection blinked slower than she did. It was late May when I found the envelope. We were back at the Los Angeles estate prepping for a private birthday event. I had been asked to double-check the guest house, where overflow VIPs were being lodged, a minor task. The guest house was mostly unused, filled with old boxes of archived clothing, demo tapes, and unopened PR packages. I was going through one of the closets when I spotted an unmarked shoebox tucked behind a duffel bag. Inside, a thick stack of old Polaroids, bound in twine, all dated between 2016 and 2019. Most of the shots were innocuous: studio parties, blurred backstage selfies, weird flexes for the camera. But one photo in the middle made my skin go cold. It was taken in a mirror room, same frame, same lighting. A woman sat in front of the mirror in the exact same posture I'd seen Jane in a dozen times, back straight, hands folded in her lap. But this woman wasn't Jane. She had different features, a different build, still beautiful, still blank. And standing behind her, in the same way I'd once seen him, was Diddy, hands resting gently on her shoulders, eyes locked on the reflection, expression unreadable. The caption scribbled on the back in faded Sharpie read, "Second try, still not holding." I put the photo back and closed the box. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that photo, about the phrase, "still not holding," like she was something being tested, measured, corrected. I started going through old photos in our internal archives, candid shots, press material, internal social coverage, and there it was, quietly, always in the background. Different girls, always seated in front of mirrors, same pose, same chair. Each one lasted a year or less, until Jane. A week later, something happened that still makes my throat close up when I think about it. We were back in Atlanta, staying at a private condo tower Diddy used for low-profile meetings. I was walking to the supply room on the second floor when I stopped at the hallway near Jane's quarters. The light outside her room flickered, just for a second. I didn't think anything of it until I saw her standing at the end of the corridor, alone, in the dark, not moving. Her face was turned toward me, but her eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking through me, like she was staring at something over my shoulder. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. And before I could take a step, she turned and walked back into her room. No words, no sound, just gone. Later that night, I was reviewing next week's travel schedule in my room. I opened the mirrored closet door to grab a jacket, and there, barely visible in the reflection, was a shape behind me, a feminine figure, still, watching. I spun around. Nothing. Just my bed, my bag, my laptop humming softly on the desk. I stared into the mirror again. It was just me now. But something in the reflection felt delayed, like my movement wasn't quite syncing up, like there was lag in the glass. That was when I noticed it, etched faintly into the upper corner of the mirror, so fine it looked like a hairline scratch. Not a doll, a vessel. It was in Berlin when everything started to fall apart. Diddy was scheduled for a private appearance at an art gallery tied to a fashion house partnership. Low media, high payout. We'd been in Europe for 4 days. Jane hadn't said a word the entire trip, but her movements felt different, less fluid, more mechanical, like she was glitching on the inside. On the third night after the event, there was a scene. I was in the back hallway of the venue checking the catering breakdown when I heard something. Glass shattering, followed by sharp, muffled shouting. The kind of sound you don't hear from Diddy often. He doesn't raise his voice unless something breaks the script. I turned the corner just in time to see Jane storm out of a side room. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. Her face looked stretched, like it was trying to hold back something enormous. Her fists were clenched and she walked past me without looking up. I hesitated, then followed. I found her sitting alone on a couch in one of the empty green rooms, staring at the wall. The only light came from a flickering exit sign. I sat a few feet away, giving her space. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. She didn't respond. I watched her inhale slowly, as if pulling something painful through her ribs. Then she whispered, "The ritual says I take care of him, and he takes care of me." I waited a moment. "I get that," I said. "I've seen what being close to him can do. That kind of pressure, the expectations. It's like you lose who you are just trying to keep up." She cut me off. "You don't understand. It's not about being a girlfriend. It's about binding." Her voice was flat but sharp, measured but exhausted. "There are things I've done for him," she said. "Things that weren't for show. Things no one clapped for. Things no one would survive doing." I didn't know what to say. I watched her slowly turn toward me, her face pale, her lips trembling, not from sadness, from strain. "Demons," she whispered. "They don't just follow him. They look for empty places. Cracks. That's what I was for. That's why he was supposed to follow the ritual." "What ritual?" I asked. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. "He was supposed to feed me, cloak me, keep the mirrors facing the right way, keep the rooms cold, say the names at night, keep the oil warm. There were rules to keep them out of me." My stomach tightened. I tried to focus on what she was saying, but her words felt like keys to a lock I didn't want to open. She leaned forward slightly, but he stopped. He thought I could hold it on my own, that I was strong enough now. He doesn't understand. I was never strong. I was just willing. "Willing to do what?" I asked. Her eyes glossed over. Her voice turned mechanical. "To forget who I was." She pulled up her sleeve. I saw the same smooth, flawless skin as always, but for just a split second, I could swear it shimmered. Not like glitter, like glaze, like ceramic, like porcelain. Then it was gone. "You think I'm a woman," she said, "but I'm not anymore. I'm just the part of the house you don't live in. The echo in the hallway, the thing he didn't want to carry. So I did." She stood, almost floating upright. There was something disconnected in the way her limbs moved, like her bones didn't match her muscles anymore. She started to walk away, but paused at the doorway. I wasn't the first. I won't be the last. But but I'm starting to forget what it felt like to be someone. She looked back once, just enough for the exit sign's red glow to catch her face in profile. Her lips parted like she was about to say something else. Then she was gone. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? That the girl we'd all been scheduling first-class flights for wasn't real anymore? That she spoke in riddles and rituals and sounded like a scratched cassette? That I'd seen her skin fracture and blinked it away? So I did what I always did. I stayed in my lane. I shut my mouth, and I prayed, without knowing what to pray to, that the mirror in my hotel room stayed facing the wall. Jane disappeared 2 weeks after Berlin. No warning, no goodbye, no message, just gone. Her room was cleared the next day. All the custom outfits, the mirrored travel case, even the specially commissioned silk gloves she wore on flights, gone like they'd never existed. I asked the head assistant if she was okay. Who? I waited for the sarcasm, but it never came. He looked confused, genuinely confused. I mentioned the travel documents, the burner phone, the quiet room setups in every city. He shrugged. You're talking about that makeup girl from the Miami shoot? She's long gone? That wasn't who I meant. But I knew then they weren't pretending. They'd been wiped. Or worse, they'd never remembered her at all. A week later, a new girl arrived. I wasn't told her name. I didn't need to be. I saw her walking behind Diddy as he left a meeting in Calabasas. Young, silent. Her eyes already had that distant glaze, like she was staring through everything and everyone. Same walk, same shape, same eerie grace. The only thing different was the hair. She wasn't Jane, but she was. I went back to the guest house. I had to see it again. The old photo, the one with the mirror, the other woman, the caption about the second try. I had to prove to myself that it was real. Jane wasn't possessed. She was emptied, worn down until nothing of herself remained, so something else could live in her skin. And Diddy? He didn't worship her. He used her. She was a conduit, a disguise, a host. Not the first, not the last. On my final day at the estate, I passed Diddy in the hallway. He was alone for once, no entourage, no noise. He looked at me like he'd been waiting. Then calmly, she liked you. You stayed in your lane. That's rare. He patted me on the shoulder like I'd done a good job. And that was it. That's how I left. No drama, no confrontation, just silence. But as I walked past the new girl, seated near the back patio, her hands folded just like Jane's, she turned slightly and smiled at me. A small, slow smile. Jane's smile. That night, I checked into a hotel under a fake name. I left my phone in the drawer, turned all the mirrors toward the walls, and sat with the lights on until sunrise. I didn't sleep, because for the first time I realized it had never just been about her. It had always been about the one behind her. Whatever it wasn't gone. It had just moved on. It had been almost 3 years. I left the industry, moved out of state, changed my number, got a desk job coordinating event security for a sports venue in Phoenix. Nothing high profile, no headlines, just quiet routine. But quiet doesn't mean peace. I kept the hotel mirrors turned to the walls. I unplugged every smart device I owned. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night thinking I'd heard whispering in the vents, or the sound of footsteps pacing behind glass. Most of the time, I convinced myself it was paranoia, until the trial started. Diddy's face was back on every screen, allegations, leaked footage, witness lists that read like scripts from horror films. I hadn't planned to watch any of it. I didn't want to know. But one night, the stream auto-played while I was scrolling through old emails. A blurred woman took the stand, face obscured, voice digitally lowered. The announcer's voice was calm. Key testimony from a protected witness. Her identity remains sealed under a federal motion filed earlier this year. I didn't recognize her by sight. But when she spoke, my body locked. I was told to obey, smile, sit still. I wasn't allowed to cry. That was the rule. The ritual said he takes care of me, and I take care of him. That's the balance. But he broke it. He stopped saying the names. He let the mirrors face the wrong way. The courtroom was silent, and through the screen I could hear the breath between her words. I remembered that breath, the slight pause, the rhythm, the hollow grace. It was her. It was Jane, or what had been Jane. He started placing others beside me. I told him I couldn't hold that much. I wasn't made for it. He said I wasn't supposed to feel anything, that I was built for silence. My hands trembled. I felt bile rise in my throat. It was like hearing a ghost describe your dreams. I told him I'd shatter. The live stream froze. For a moment, the screen turned black. Then a glitch, barely a frame, flashed across the monitor. In the blur of static, I saw her eyes, wide, still, watching. The screen went dark again. I stared at my reflection in the laptop screen, my own face. Or at least I thought it was mine. And then I heard it. A faint knock. Behind the hotel wall mirror, 3 soft taps. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. My heart pounded like it wanted out of my chest. And in that moment, I remembered her final words to me. I wasn't the first. I won't be the last. But I'm starting to forget what it felt like to be someone. I understood now. She was never erased, just overwritten, like a VHS tape reused too many times. Each layer fuzzier, each girl less real than the one before, but the voice remained. The vessel held. A doll cannot exist without a host, and something always has to carry the weight. Even now, I wonder, how long until the next smile I see isn't her smile again? How long until I forget what it felt like to be me?